Muy buenas people! Today we're building this outdoor area for our tiny house at Nativa del Cerro. This is a tiny cabin we use for Airbnb type rentals, and we wanted to give our guests a comfortable place to hang out and enjoy the great outdoors. We first started working on the mold for the concrete ring. This cylinder is the centerpiece of the outdoor area and will function as both a fire pit and an outdoor table. At the very beginning, we had a general idea of what we wanted, but we weren't completely sure it was all going to work. So we started building things without a very detailed plan. We first grabbed some 2x3s we had laying around and pre-cut multiple 50cm pieces. This will come in handy later on, right when we start assembling the mold. But before we get to that, we first need a base. For the base, we decided on a 1 meter diameter plywood circle. We used whatever plywood leftovers we had laying around our shop to cut segments until we completed the circle. We used the circular saw and the jigsaw to get the rough shape ready. You'll notice that the outer line is super janky, but the outer edge of the circle isn't actually the outer edge of the mold, and again, we were only experimenting at this point. Ideally, you would want to build this from a full sheet. This will prevent potential leaks when pouring the concrete, and you'll save some time cutting and assembling all these small pieces. We use scraps of wood and nails to hold all of our pieces in place, completing the full circle for our next step. Once we had the base ready, we marked the inner ring using a rope and a colored pencil. We decided to start assembling the inner ring first, as it would have been a lot harder to assemble this with the outer ring already in place. Now, here's where the 2x3 pieces come into play. We held them against our circular base and screwed them in from the bottom, using the markings we made earlier for the inner ring perimeter. We ended up with something that looks like a cage, and we secured them from the top too, making it super sturdy. At this point, we were feeling super confident, so we went out to try something we knew was going to be a complete failure from the beginning. We were hoping we would be able to bend a particle board around the ring. It was very obvious it was going to break as soon as we forced it around the structure, but we went for it anyway. We cut it to length, spent unnecessary time cutting grooves in the back of the board, and confirmed that we were really stupid just for thinking it might work. With that experiment out of the way, we tried the same thing but with a thin sheet of plywood. We cut it to the right dimensions, soaked it wet, and tested lightly. Then we improvised the jig to cut straight grooves with the router and cut dozens of grooves on the board. We made grooves every 2 inches or so. There are online sites where you can actually calculate the distance you need between grooves depending on the curve. But we went with our instinct on this one as we just wanted to try it out. By the end of it, the board was super bendy and we knew it could work this time. We screwed the end of the board to one of the 2x3 columns and started curving it against the ring. This was the first time we had bent any kind of wood, so we were super proud of ourselves. We let it dry overnight, added some extra screws to hold the curved panel to the columns, and then unscrewed the now inner cylinder to work comfortably on the outer ring. We follow the same steps as before. We screw the 2x3s to the circular base, following the outer perimeter, cut the plywood to its final dimensions, made tons of grooves with the router, and soaked the board in water before curving. On the outer ring, we left the columns exposed and screw the panel from the inside, as we needed the mold to have flat walls where the concrete was going to be poured. We curved the panel and screwed it as we went. We had to add an additional piece since the length of a full board isn't enough to cover the entire perimeter of the bigger ring. This is something you might want to consider if you're building something similar, as it might affect the shape of your cylinder. We cut the additional piece, added grooves, secured an additional column to the base, and hammered into place. Once it was dry, we took the inner cylinder and assembled it back onto the base, screwing it from the bottom and following the markings we had left, making sure it was centered. And this is how the finished mold ended up looking. Our friend and neighbor stopped by and helped us put together a rebar reinforcement for the concrete. We built a super basic structure with 2 rings and cross sections to put inside the mold to give the cured concrete added strength. This was all welded and put together in a short time. We then turned our attention to the actual site and started marking the area where we were going to be excavating. We marked the fire pit area as well as the path and brought in the bricks that we would later on use to delimit everything. Doing the excavation was quite a job. We only used hand tools and it really made us sweat. Overall, I think we dug a 15 centimeter deep hole across the entire section. With the overall shape ready, we laid the main electrical pipe in and covered everything with underlayment fabric. We finished setting the remaining electrical pipes and then hired the sand and the gravel to be brought in. I couldn't be there to film the sand and the gravel, but this is how it ended up looking. It is finally time to pour the concrete into the mold. We mixed everything together according to the specifications and sprayed the walls of the mold with water in preparation for the pour. We also had to level the mold by adding dirt below it, as the site is on a slope. When we finished, we left it drying for several days before demolding it. I have to say, we were not ready at all for this to be this heavy. This thing is not easy to move by any means. We had to ask for help, and it took 4 people to move these a couple of meters to its final position. We had to do this at night, so I was not able to record it. Now, I can say it was not a gentle process, and it took a lot of brute force, which inevitably left a couple of bruises on the concrete ring. At this point, we were too far into the project to go back, so we decided to move forward. We did some research and found this concrete repair mix that is pretty much ready to use. You just add water to the mix and you're ready to go. We spread the mix over the damaged areas and let it dry. Only one detail remained now. We bought a set of outdoor lamps on Amazon and connected them to our power source. The installation was quite easy, and we secured them to concrete posts we dug into the ground earlier. So this is it. We're very happy with how this turned out. This all started as an experiment, and we successfully did a couple of firsts while building this. As always, the most fun is spending some time together while doing stuff we enjoy. And hopefully, we've created a space that our guests can now enjoy when they visit us. Thanks for watching, everyone.